Well, good evening, everyone. Michael Soothing here. Tonight I'm going to talk about something a little bit different. Aquarium fish. I have a couple books that I could no more read than Fly to the Moon. So I'm only going to talk about the photos because these books are written in Danish. Why do you ask, do I have aquarium books written in Danish? Well, because Joanne, her stepdad, he wrote these books, and Maria brought them from across the pond when she arrived today, along with other things that she found in the residence where Joanne had some of her things and grew up. So I thought we would talk about them a little bit because I love aquariums. I'm going to have one once we fix our house properly so that it has a very stable foundation, and then I'll show it to you and talk about it someday. Meanwhile, I haven't given up on requests. People say, where's that poker strategy series you promised, and where's this one, and where's that one? I will do as I can in the future some of those requests. I haven't forgotten. Also, I want to give a shout out to Sassy Snacks, also known as Sassy Crafts. She still needs additional help. She's a great mukbang ASMR artist, and that's what my wife Joanne does, also mukbang. But Sassy is a very well-known, but she's really struggling with a pancreatic cancer and some complications, and so I'm going to put a link below where, if you can, you might want to go and help her out with a contribution. But anyway, on to our subject. I'm not going to remember all the names of the aquarium fish that I used to have, but I see I can kind of get the gist, although I don't understand any of this, of what he's saying. And I think he starts with, like, what kind of fish should you do? Because I see some fish names here. Killifish, Stinkendon, this and that, Frisk. Here is a beginning. It tells you how to begin making the aquarium. I assume stort probably means start. And so he tells you how to start setting it up to get the biologics correct. You can kind of figure it out, even if you don't know a language, by looking at words that are similar to the English word, like this what does it say? Biotophlog or something is probably the biology of the tank, right? Getting the pH balance correct and things like that. What kind of, variant probably means what kind of variety of tanks or what kind of variety of fish. This one doesn't have too many. Oh, here's some color illustrations. What do they call this fish? Oh, it's very similar. Barbus. They call it a barbus. This is called a tiger barb when you see these in English aquarium stores. And tiger barbs can be a little bit aggressive. So they're very colorful and interesting fish. They're quite active, but they can be a bit aggressive around other fish sometimes. The trick is, if you're gonna have a variety tank, you have to have fish that are compatible. Just like if you decide to get married, you don't want to have one person who's relaxed and the other one is an attack spouse, right? Like an attack fish. That doesn't work so well. So, yes, I'm growing it back. So you people making fun of me saying, oh, you have a baby face now. So I'm gonna grow it back, all right? So anyway, tiger barbs. I'm not gonna remember all the names. I had tiger barbs in the past, and they were good fish to have. Pretty hardy and easy to raise. Are these called pipefish? Here's some little skinny guys, you know. To me, what's interesting to you in an aquarium? To me, it's interesting to have a variety. And you can put fish that have an aggressive reputation in the tank as long as they're not aggressive with the species in there. For example, you can have a nice dark purple and blue Siamese fighting fish, also known as a beta. Some people say, oh, that would be so incompatible with the other fish. If I come across one in here, I'll show you. But the reason they're called fighting fish is that they can't be in a tank with another Siamese fighting fish. That's the problem. So you don't want especially two males in a tank together, because they will just fight and harass each other, you know. Like, well, I don't want to get into politics, but I was gonna say, you know, like Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi wouldn't be good tank mates in an aquarium, for example, right? Or Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump. I don't know. You know, maybe I'm going to have to do sometime an aquarium and name all the fish for political figures and then explain why they are those figures. And we can make a little fun of all of it. But anyway, this picture's a little small to see, but I recognize these guys down here. These are called gouramis. Can you see them? It's a little tough to see. There's one, a gourami. And there's rainbow gouramis, opaline gouramis. Opaline gouramis are quite interesting in a tank. They're very active and curious. There's kissing gouramis, in case you want to have an R-rated aquarium. They make out all the time, okay? Of course, some say they're not really kissing, but why take the fun out of it for the fish? You want to have places for your fish to hide, right? Nice vegetation. I think I want to do a natural tank instead of having plastic plants, although they're quite difficult to maintain properly. I don't know if you realize it, but if you've never had an aquarium, you can't just fill up a tank and put a bunch of fish in there, okay? That doesn't work, because if you do that, within no time, you're going to see a bunch of fish floating upside down on the surface, which isn't really what you intended for your aquarium, right? Especially if they cost like $20 a piece. So what you have to do, this book by Ule, that's Joanne's. She grew up arguing with Ule because they both like to debate. And there's no one on earth who likes to argue and debate more than Joanne, which may be a surprise to you if you listen to her mellow, soft-spoken ASMR videos. But she does. It's like a mind test for her, everything, you know. But anyway, where was I about tanks? You fill up the tank. If your water's chlorinated, meaning it tastes terrible, like you're sipping a swimming pool, then you're going to have to use dechlorination tablets or let it sit for a few days, because all the chlorine will evaporate off the surface of the water and be all gone. But you also have to do other things to prepare for the fish, like you need a bunch of gravel and rock in the bottom, a pretty thick layer. That's going to be where all the biological filtration occurs. That's going to be where waste products are converted magically into good bacteria and byproducts that are not toxic to the fish. But how do you build that up to get it to work right? You start with just a few fish. Maybe some you don't care about, like you could throw a few little goldfish in there that are really inexpensive to buy and let them get the whole biologic cycle started over a 2 or 3 week period. You have to test the water and see if it's okay before you put expensive aquarium fish in. When it's really good, you can take a couple goldfish out and you can put them in a goldfish bowl or feed them to your cat, maybe. Don't mean to be cruel to the poor goldfish. Forget I said that. You could put them in your local pond and risk the wrath of ruining the biodiversity balance. Don't do that either, now that I think of it, because you really can wreck an ecosystem by putting the wrong fish into it. So don't do that. Anyway, so you take a couple of the goldfish out once the water's been nicely prepared, and then you start introducing your more exotic aquarium fish, one at a time preferably, or if they're small fish, you can put a half a dozen little fish in there, like say a tetra. See these? These are neon tetras. And neon tetras, if you have a fluorescent light in your tank, they shine and glow, but they're quite small. So you could put half a dozen. They're also very hardy. What do they call them here in Danish? Sardellis populaire. They must be a popular type of fish. I think that's what I'm getting from that. And they're tolerant, see? They're tolerant. It says right there, just as I was telling you, they're not hard to raise. This here is called a hatchet fish in the English. Sometimes they're transparent and you can see through them, which is a little bit disconcerting, okay? Oh, here's some weird little fish on the bottom that sit on the bottom with little arms on them, like something out of an evolutionary missing link or something, like mud skippers. I don't know what they're called. You need a couple of fish in your tank to clean the glass and stuff. Like an algae eater is really good to have because it basically, well, eats the algae that grows on the side of the tank. Of course, you could clean your tank frequently, but that's not as much fun as watching the algae eater do it and being lazy, okay? So, when I do an aquarium at home, then I'll do a long video on how to set it up and get it going properly. So don't expect all the tips and information in this video. We're just looking at fish pictures because Maria brought Ole's published books, which are in libraries in Denmark, by the way. So that's kind of cool that she has a published author in the family. This looks like more tiger barb. Something or other, barbus pentazona, from Malaysia or something. Tiger barbs. I'm starting to get enthusiastic about starting the aquarium. Not all fish are going to thrive for you. When I was young and had an aquarium, I got a puffer fish, freshwater puffer fish. Did you ever see Mrs. Puff on SpongeBob SquarePants? Remember when she would give driving lessons to SpongeBob and he kept running into things, and each time Mrs. Puff would go and she would puff up. Oh, I shouldn't make quick moves in an ASMR video, but I couldn't help myself. Anyway, I had some really cool looking freshwater puffers, and they would do the same thing, but they're very hard to keep alive, and so I wasn't successful for more than a few weeks with those little guys. I never see them in tropical fish stores anymore. Maybe they were a bad idea to begin with. What else do we have? This shows somebody who's populated a pond like a half and half. I think Ole, who wrote this book, took the photos also. I have to ask Joanne. This tells you things like, I don't know what Van Dat means, but I know this has to do with, I think, the water, how to prepare it, and look at pH balance and things like that. Temperature for your fish, quite important. Some people make their tank too warm. There's a heater you put in it, see, and it automatically maintains the temperature of your aquarium. Some people make it too warm, and some make it not warm enough for the species they have. Planternay. You Danes are saying, can't you pronounce any word in Danish properly? And the answer to that is no. Okay, how do you say no in Danish? I'm gonna get Joanne to read some of this with us on another video so I don't feel quite so foolish, right? By the way, Maria also brought a ton of pasalubong with her from the Philippines, and I'm going to do a haul video with that pasalubong, which is a Filipino word for when you travel, you bring gifts to the folks that you're coming to see, especially family members. I don't know how Maria did it, but she crammed about 8 million gifts into her suitcase. I don't think she had room for anything else, probably not even a t-shirt, because she has this one suitcase, but we have bags and bags and bags of pasalubong. She brought gifts for family members, my dad and his wife, and my daughter and her 2 new babies, and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's really cool. But I'll show you what she brought me, like in the next day or two, a haul video, and maybe I'll do one with Joanne to show all the other stuff, because it's interesting stuff that she brought. She's a good shopper. She brought things for Chelsea, for Joanne, and for everybody. Here is the second book. It's got a couple of, I think these are called platies. If I recall my aquarium fish correctly, I had platies, and they're another hardy, easy to raise fish. But let's see what else they have in here before I run into the infamous problem with my battery dying. I think here we have some fancy guppies. And guppies don't get very big, but what's interesting is they come in all kinds of colors and varieties. This book, I think, is on live-bearing fish, and so it's kind of interesting. What the live-bearers do, instead of laying eggs, is if you have a bunch of guppies, suddenly one day some of them start getting a little fatter, and then you have little tiny new guppies. But if you don't get them out of the tank quickly into their own little nursery tank, which a little small one you could have on the side, or into some netting or something in the main tank, they're going to disappear quickly because other fish will very rudely eat them. All right, so you've got to protect. I had a tank with lots of vegetation, and I had suddenly one day about 30 baby guppies in there. The next day there was only maybe 20, and the next day only about 12. And those 12 were pretty good at hiding. So I quickly realized I needed to do something, and so I put them in a separate tank, and that worked wonders. And I was able to grow pretty much all of them to full size. Guppies are smaller than, here we have albino and some other type live bear. I don't think these are guppies, but they're another live bearing fish. These are called red swords for obvious reasons. Not the technical Latin term. Most of these fish have a technical Latin name, which is probably very similar in Danish as in English. But that's not what I know them by, because no one uses that at the tropical fish store, right? So, but it would be universal. I forget the name of this, another kind of platy. And here we have what looks like some kind of gar, or they call it like a shovel nose or something. That kind there. All different types of aquarium fish. I really want to, really getting enthused about starting up a tank once again. It's been decades since I had one. It's been maybe, I don't know, at least 20 years. That's about 19 and a half years too long to not have an aquarium, because I'm fascinated by marine biology and fish, which is why I go fishing all the time. But I love all the ecosystems in the lakes and in the streams. There are, I haven't seen any zebra barbs, which are another species, very easy to raise. And I don't necessarily recognize this one. So maybe that's a species that's in Europe and not the US, I don't know. Most of these fish come from South America or other tropical climates. Central South America, Brazil. Some come from some of the equatorial areas, Polynesia, New Guinea, etc., etc. And I don't know how they manage to get them all. They're getting better about being more responsible with the fish, more taking better care of them, the care and feeding of them, so they don't kill them all off or get them sick when they're importing them into the country. But anyway, I enjoy the aquarium hobby, and I thought it was so interesting when Maria and Joanne showed me these two books and said, oh, my stepdad Ule, who I grew up with, wrote these and published them, and they're all over Denmark. That was quite fascinating. But anyway, I think that will do it for this video today. I hope that you enjoyed it, or at least I hope it relaxed you just a little bit. And if so, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll try to remember to put a link if you want to go help out Sassy Snacks Lizzie with the bad struggle she's going through. I'll be back in 2 or 3 days with another video, and until then, don't ASMR and drive. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.